Florida Gators and the Texas Longhorns. We thought all off season long, not just us actually, but people across college football's landscape, thought this was going to be the game to watch this week in college football. It has turned into more or less of a dud in the week, and in fact, weeks heading up into it because the Florida Gators have started out 1-3. Do the Florida Gators have a last stand type of rebirth waiting for us, or is this the end for Billy Napier, or is this just going to be a continued death march towards the end for Billy Napier with no action being taken by a Florida UAA that nobody in particular likes a whole lot outside of those who they rub shoulders with? But anyway, enough about that for now. Welcome back to the All Kinds Weather Forecast. I'm your host, Neil Shulman. You can follow me on Twitter at All Kinds Weather. Also joining me today, Adrian Perez at ADNDEL. Also follow him for his stickball stuff at Gator Diamond Pod. Does a great job with Chris Yorick there, who, of course, has joined forces with the All Kinds Weather team, and they will be bringing their expertise to our brand this, I should say fall, because there will be fall ball coming up soon, but primarily this spring. Yeah, fall ball starting soon. Something to get excited about for the Gators, because Gator football is just not doing it. I guess basketball, obviously, defending champs. Of course, that's something to be excited about. And we will talk about that in a lot more detail as we get a little bit closer. But before we get into anything else we're talking about today, got to take a second to shout out our sponsor. The All Kinds Weather Forecast is proudly sponsored by 401k Generation, the wealth management company that helps you invest today for your future tomorrow. Their team of advisors is committed to providing guidance and education for your 401k plan and its participants, and they also offer a range of enrollment solutions tailored to meet the unique needs of your company's 401k plan. Whether it's saving for your child's college, investment advice, or even just your retirement, 401k Generation team of advisors makes getting to know you their top priority. Their advisors will tailor a path to assist you in navigating life's financial milestones and reaching your financial goals. 401k Generation, building stronger futures, one generation at a time. For more information, contact them, 866-998-5879, or visit their website at 401kgeneration.com. All right, Adrian, we were expecting to be talking about a potential Heisman Trophy candidate showdown this weekend. Arch Manning, DJ Lagway, which one of them is going to take the next step towards really cementing himself as a Heisman favorite, or at least locking down a trip to New York City? It's been nothing like that for the first several games of the season for both Florida and for Texas. Texas, the difference is the Longhorns have at least managed to win games between the start of the season and now, not because of Arch Manning, but because of other pieces around him, specifically on that defense. But what about this Florida team do you think we're going to be talking about tonight the most? Because it's pretty clear that there's a storyline that stands head and shoulders above all else. So let's get into that. Billy Napier, we think, is a dead man walking. It's been no secret. Adrian, I'll let you get the first crack at this. Is this, I'll ask this for the second game in a row, is this the final time we see Billy Napier stalking the Florida sideline?
It's funny because I think we're going to be asking this like every week probably.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show you how it's going to be like a slow death march kind of. But one thing real quick before I answer this, Texas has played a much softer schedule besides that opener against Ohio State. I mean, they've played 3 cupcakes after that. So, that could play a role into their record. But we'll talk about that more. But back to Billy, man. Listen, I just don't think Strickland wants to fire Billy. Okay, so when it all is said and done, I don't think Strickland wants to make the move. So it's going to take something extraordinary for this to happen. Strickland looks at last year. He gave Billy the end of last year. It ended up on a 4-game win streak. Strickland felt vindicated going into this year. Obviously, it didn't carry over. But what's going on now, unfortunately, Strickland is somewhat forcing the Gators' fans' hand, I'm saying, to kind of root against their team, and that sucks. When an athletic director does that to the fan base, that sucks, because Billy is dead man walking. Billy Napier is not a good offensive coordinator. Billy Napier is not a good play caller, and unfortunately, that makes him not a good head coach, right? Because if he cannot self-evaluate and know that the best way to get the most out of his team is for him not to do those two functions. If he cannot do that after 4 years, then it doesn't make him a good head coach anymore. And I always believed that Billy could be a good head coach if he just delegated those two things. But he refuses to do so. And man, he refuses to do so. So I think now Strickland is forcing Gator fans to kind of root against Florida to just completely bottom out. And I think if the Gators could manage to win 4 or 5 games, Neil, which I thought would never be the case, I think Billy stays. I think if the Gators win 4 or 5 games, it'll start to trickle out. The media boys will start to trickle out that DJ and D did have injuries throughout the season. Strickland will also start to, hint that the schedule really was unfair for Florida. And you combine all those things with 4 or 5 wins, I think Billy comes back next year, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly care what the record winds up being this year because to me, I've seen all the evidence I need to see that Billy Napier is not the guy. We saw it. I mean, we saw it 2 years ago.
I agree. Same.
We could point to the Kentucky game in 2023 when Florida was down 3 scores and Napier did not seem to have the slightest bit of urgency and Florida was just lollygagging its way up the field. Again, down 3 scores to Kentucky. And he just didn't have a care in the world. And we've seen things like that play out repeatedly since then. We saw it most recently against LSU in this 3rd game of this season. Florida's down 20-10. I posted that on Twitter I guess when y'all see this yesterday morning. Florida just chilling, down 20-10. Balls at their own 15-yard line, but they've got 5 minutes to go. It takes them 3 minutes just to get 30 yards when you need 2 scores. Like, he just doesn't care. And that's the message. Those are the optics that have been passed on to us that he does not care. Or he's just fundamentally incapable of grasping the very idea that you need to have urgency, which is just as bad, if not even worse. But in either case, we've had 4 offseasons, really, if you want to count the offseason in which he came here. But since he started actually coaching games for Florida, like since the results came in, he's had 3 offseasons to realize he's not the right guy to call plays for Florida. He hasn't done a damn thing about it. There was a tweet today posted by, I think, Bud Davis, who does some good analytic stuff for Florida. The offensive line grades for Florida are okay, but when you have 2 offensive line coaches, you expect them to be a lot better than okay, especially when one of those 5 guys is a returning All-American, and another one of them is another 5th-year guy for you. Like Austin Barber was here in 2021. So was Jake Slaughter. You have 2 5-year guys here. You expect the totality of the grades to be better than okay. And yes, those guys' grades are better than the others, which means Rob Sale has not produced anything that you would really think merits 2 offensive line coaches, an assistant to him, except with every bit as much authority as any other position coach. So, again, I mean, this is done. Like, this is so far in the rearview mirror over. We're not going to stand for Scott Strickland and his UAA buddies just gaslighting us into thinking, oh, well, maybe things will turn around this year. It doesn't freaking matter. Like, it just doesn't matter. I don't care. You don't care. I'm willing to bet the whole of the fan base does not care. The WHOLE, the totality of this fan base will not care. Yes, you'll have those new dads, new parents who want to take their little girl to their first ever game and maybe not in a super rowdy or hostile environment where fans are throwing stuff at each other, because that's how it gets when there's 2 nasty fan bases in front of the top 10 showdown, so that they'll see a chance to go and see their Gators play without that kind of danger, risk, or whatever. So, yeah, there will be some fans in the stands the rest of the way. And next year, should Scott Strickland decide to give Billy Napier another season at Florida, but for the majority of the fans who really fund this operation, especially, this is over. There's no way Napier is going to come back from this. I don't think, even if he did win the rest of his games, I don't think he's going to do that, obviously. I don't know that he's going to win this weekend, but even if he did win the rest of his games, I don't think that gets Florida in the playoff this year, unless there's a lot of chaos ahead of them. Like, I think it's already mathematically cooked, but we will have to see. Obviously, there's a chance if he wins out, but I just don't think it's likely. So with that being said, we both think Napier is cooked. We think it's final. But the Gators do have a chance to at least do something to, I guess, give us a reason to smile for a minute this week. If we beat Texas, they are a historic program. They did embarrass us last year. It would not be anywhere close enough to get us back on Billy Napier's side. But at least to me, it's hard to root against the Florida Gators. So let's just take this from the perspective of we're going to root for Florida to win this weekend, even if you're not doing that, Adrian. I don't know. I find
haven't said that. I haven't said that, but
it feels like you're wrestling with it, like you're debating it in your mind, like. And I get it. I had this discussion last year with Chris when he was still here. We talked about it during the Tennessee game preview. He gave a fiery speech about how you should never root for your team to lose. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. If Billy Napier is the incompetent moron we all think he is, he's going to lose games anyway and get himself fired. But I'm not sure that last part's true anymore. So with that being said, though, let's assume we're both rooting for Florida this weekend. I am rooting for Florida despite knowing that an embarrassing loss probably does finish him off. What do we think of the opponent, Texas? Because they have not looked so invincible to me so far this year. Adrian, what have been some of the weak points that you've noticed?
You know, that overriding thought that Texas has looked kind of weak and stuff like that, you know, it all comes down to the play of Arch Manning, right? Because Texas defense, we'll talk about it a little bit later. I mean, they're elite. Now, I got to go back to what I said a little bit earlier. They had Ohio State, first game of the season, and it's the first game. It's the opener. That's kind of a little bit wonky. It was a defensive battle. Ohio State looks awesome. So for them to have held Ohio State to only 14, okay, even though their subsequent 3 games were against much lesser opponents, still leads me to believe that Texas's defense is legit, okay? So the perception that they're a little bit vulnerable comes down to the play of Arch Manning, right? You know, let's face it, Neil, you've talked about it a little bit in your opener. This is the battle of the preseason hype QBs, right? I mean, no one had more preseason hype than Arch Manning and DJ Lagway. And to this point, DJ especially has flopped a lot more than Arch. Because when you look at Arch's stats, I mean, he's 71 for 119, 9 TDs, 3 INTs. He's thrown for 888 yards. So, you know, it's not unbelievable. But if DJ had those numbers, Florida might be undefeated right now. Okay, let's call a spade a spade. Now, Florida's played a lot better competition, but I think people just had so much hype for Arch Manning that unless he was throwing for over 300 yards, had, you know, double-digit TDs and maybe 1 INT right now, people would be saying that he's been a disappointment. So I don't think it's been really that bad, to be honest with you, Neil. I've looked at a lot of their stats, you know. I've looked at some of Arch's stats, and I've watched some of his games against, like, Sam Houston State. Last week, he looked really good. Now, is Sam Houston State a powerhouse? Of course not. But, heck, DJ didn't look good against LIU. He hasn't looked good against anybody. So, you know, at least Arch has looked good against someone, Neil. So, you know, yeah, are they a little bit vulnerable? Who knows? I don't think so. I think there's a really good team coming in here Saturday into the swamp, man.
Well, they're definitely good in terms of talent. They're one of the teams that we talked about that has more natural talent than Florida. There are some teams on their schedule this year, Florida clearly has more talent than that we think they'll lose to, like Ole Miss. Now FSU, we think they're going to wind up losing to. But then there are some teams that you look at as way more talented than Florida, like Georgia. And should they have played Alabama, it would have been them. Obviously, they don't. But Texas, another one. LSU, I wouldn't say way more talent, but they do have more talent than Florida. They almost lost that game, LSU. Remember Nussmeier giving Dijon Johnson that gift after Florida failed to recover a fumble. So Florida very much in that game, despite Napier's incompetence as a play caller. Florida still hanging around with this elementary school offense for 4 quarters because their defense gave Nussmeier problems. So I wonder if Florida can do the same with Arch Manning in the swamp. Does that get the Gator crowd into it a little bit? Did the Gator fans kind of for a moment forget how much they hate Scott Strickland and Billy Napier? And do they get their voices into it? Do they cause some problems for Arch Manning, a guy who, as we said, has not played very well this year against good competition? And you talked about playing three cupcakes. Let's just run off who they were. San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston State. And against UTEP, he was really bad. 11 for 25 for 114 yards with a pick and a touchdown in a game that Texas only won 27-10. They were favored by a lot more than that. So, again, this is Texas's first real test since that opener against Ohio State. Again, this one on the road. I don't know that I'd say the Swamp would be quite as hostile as the Horseshoe just because of how bad Florida is this year. But Florida fans, again, if you give them reason to, this is a close game in the fourth quarter. You never know what could get Arch Manning a little spooked and seeing ghosts, especially if Florida has some success getting to him early on in the game, which they have not done so far this year for the most part. And let's talk about that because Florida's defense, when it is given a reason to it, like when it's angry and when it has its pieces, this year they've been pretty good. They did get beat a couple times against LSU. They did get beat, obviously, in the big touchdown against South Florida. And then Miami kind of just wore them down. The defense did its job for 4 quarters, though. I'm wondering, do the Gators' defensive players give us that same level of effort for 4 quarters and give us this reason to maybe get into the game in the fourth quarter if the game stays close? Or do you think they just quit?
We're going to talk about that later because the playing defense is tough, Neil. Okay, I've talked about it on this podcast already. Playing defense takes a lot of effort, man, a lot of heart. And it's the defense that got probably Pittman fired from Arkansas last week when his defense gave up 50-something points against Notre Dame. Okay, that's where you're going to see the quit in a team. Now, maybe the guys on this defense, man, when you're talking about a Miles Graham, a Tyreek Sapp, when you're talking about even Cormani McClain, who's got stuff to prove to the world right now, all right? Maybe it's not in these guys' DNA to quit, dude, all right? And maybe that, out of all the things that Billy's had bad luck for sometimes here at Florida, that might be the luckiest stroke that he gets out of this season, is that he's got a bunch of dogs on defense that just ain't going to quit. Because that at least will keep him in every game, and it might be enough to steal him 2 or 3 games, which, like I said, Neil, might be enough for him to be back next year. So, with that being said, no, I don't think this defense quits. Now, what I am concerned about is the attrition on this defense. I think before we started, I just read that Aaron Gates is going to go in for surgery, so it looks like he's gone. Right before we started, I wanted to see if the injury report had popped up yet. But they wait until like midnight on Wednesday to finally show it. I don't know, man. These people are just a joke. Just put it out there already. What's the injury report? Because I would like to know, Bet's situation, Barros' situation. Because if that interior line, if you're running with all these freshmen and that's all you got going, man, it's going to be tough. All right? It's going to be rough sledding. Not only for Saturday, but moving forward. So that's where my concern is. Is the attrition going to finally catch up to this team on the defensive side of the ball? And if the offense just keeps putting them in bad situations, that in and of itself, even if you didn't have injuries, it's going to be a lot to overcome also. So you're asking a lot, man. And when it's all said and done, also this, man. The defense has been good, but are they elites? I consider elite defenses that turn you over, even score
sacks.
some, Yeah, and that's where this defense lacks. They are very much a bend but don't break defense. They do it very well, okay? But unfortunately, that's not really enough to help this offense. I mean, this offense needs the 85 Bears scoring a defensive touchdown like every game, turning you over like every 3 possessions and stuff like that. That's what this defense needs. I mean, this offense needs. So that's not what this defense is, though. So, but I still think that they're gonna not quit. So, but
I'm with you. I agree with you that I don't believe the Florida defense quits. I do think that they break. I think there's a big distinction
Yeah.
there. I think this is the game where, as you mentioned, Texas defense is really good. Florida, of course, as we know, Billy Napier does not do adjustments. I don't believe he has the mental capacity to do adjustments. So there's not going to be anything different. So Texas knows exactly what's coming. And I'm pretty sure that after at least 2, maybe 3 quarters or so, Florida is going to give Texas a good field and they're going to score on it. And that's when the Florida defense is just going to shut it down. They're going to say, it's over. We don't want to get hurt. They'll still play hard in spots, but they're just going to throw their hands up and go, well, what am I doing? You talk about it all the time on the show, how hard it is to play defense. They're just going to be done. They're just going to be spent. It's not that they're giving up. They have no more energy with which to give to this program. They'll be looking at the scoreboard and say, like, WTF, like, what the F is this? We've held them to 180 yards through 3 quarters and we're down by 3 scores. Like, what? This is so unreasonably unfair. And I can't give anymore. Like, my knee is bothering me. My ankle's starting to swell. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I can sense, because I know for a fact that there are some guys in this defense that are banged up that we're not going to see in the injury report. So watch for this in the 3rd and 4th quarter. If Florida finds themselves down 21-7, 24-13 or so, they're down in the 4th quarter, and then Florida turns the ball over and gives Texas an easy field. Texas scores a touchdown there and puts the back-breaking points on the board. You're going to see a lot of guys from Florida come out of the game. I'm just telling you, there are some guys in this defense that are playing in situations that I give them a lot of credit for, and I respect them for it, but they just can't do it forever. They're gonna wreck themselves. So I think if it's a close game now, if it's a tie game or a 1-score game all the way, yeah, they'll play through it. But I just have this feeling that because of the limited offense that Florida has, Lagway will make some mistake, or maybe the right tackle, whoever it is, say it's Bryce Lovett this time, will miss a block or something, and Lagway will get pummeled. The ball pops out. Texas scoops it up. They score a touchdown 3 plays later, and you're just going to see Florida have nothing else to give, and that's when you might see the score get ugly at the very end. I'm going to hold my score prediction for later. That may or may not happen. I'm just saying that is my fear. That is my worry for this Florida team. I think it's very, very possible that Florida just breaks this game. You say, Ben, don't break. I fear this is the game in which they break. So with that said, I think we both agree Florida's going to play hard in this game. I don't know that means they're going to play smart football. We've seen the penalties pile up like autumn leaves in the last few games. So the question is something that I think we already talked about, but we'll go into a little bit more detail on. Do we see anything different from DJ Lagway? I gave my answer already in the last talking point I just had. But what do you think, Adrian? Do we see anything different from DJ Lagway or no?
Yeah, interesting, man. After that USF game, if you go back to that, man, after that game, I was shook bad. Remember that I said it? I just kept saying it. I said it on the podcast. I was shook with his play. We had the post-game reaction pod that we predicted. I did 3-9. You did 4-8. And that was only after USF, the second game of the season, And then I said something about one of the storylines of this year is going to be the mishandling of DJ in the offseason. That's going to be one of the storylines. And this week, we had a little peek. Every now and then, the more people talk, if you listen, you pick up little things. Billy in the teleconference on Wednesday today said that that they've had a good off week when he was asked, and then he said that we're getting DJ ramped up. Getting DJ ramped up is why they had a good week, because they're getting DJ ramped up. DJ on Monday was available to the media. On Monday, DJ said to the media, when he was asked about the week off and stuff like that, he felt really good about it because for the first time, he did live reps one-on-one, 1v1s. He did live reps for the first time this past off week. Now, Neil, I don't know about your calendar, but my calendar says it's October 1st, brother, today. Not November 1st, not August 1st. Did Billy Napier just punt on this season? Is that what he did? Because if he's excited about getting DJ ramped up this week, and DJ just said he did 1v1 live reps for the first time 5 days ago. Did we just punt on the first quarter
That is
of this
one
season?
hell of a statement of confidence that you're going to be back next year, dude. This is what I said. Like, I tweeted this today or yesterday, I guess. I got to keep remembering that this is going out a day after. But yeah, I mean, I think Billy's just slow. Like, it's not meant to be an insult. I just don't think he's very bright. I think his IQ level is less than average, and I don't think he grasps some very elementary concepts. Like, this would be another perfect example. I don't know that. Maybe there's an explanation for this. Maybe there were some reasons why he wasn't doing live reps. Maybe they were just trying to hide something else. Maybe there was more of an injury than we were led on to believe. But I mean, like, at least there's that plausible potential explanation. But it also wouldn't surprise me if we go back to the Hanlon's razor principle we talked about a couple shows ago. Don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to stupidity. And Occam's razor, the similar explanation. The most plausible explanation is usually the correct one. Well, the most plausible explanation here is that Billy's just dumb and that he doesn't know what he's doing. So talk about the calendars. It's October 1st. Yeah, did Billy just punt on the season? Yeah, sure. That makes sense to me. I don't have any proof of that, but it would check out. That would pass the test of logic. That would come across to me as a reasonable explanation. No? So.
And if that was the case, Neil, if that was the case, that they knew that DJ was not going to be ready for the first month of the season, okay, then why didn't you, in the offseason, in the spring portal window, go after a more plausible one-year quarterback rental? You know? Not after, what's the guy that they got? Harrison
Bailey, yeah.
Harrison Bailey. Someone a little bit better than him, man. I mean, I'm sure Harrison's a great kid, but you know he's not an SEC caliber quarterback. You know, if you knew that you weren't going to have DJ for the first month of the season, maybe you should have just said, you know what, DJ, let's just take a red shirt, get your shoulder surgery, and let's go really hard after a one-year rental. And I would have respected
you know why
that.
He didn't do that. You know why he didn't do that, though, because this was his year. This was the year that you have Jake Slaughter and Austin Barber back on your offensive line. This is the year that you have Caleb Banks back on your defensive line. This is the year that you have Tyreek Sapp and George Gumbs back. You're going to lose a lot of those pieces. In fact, all of those pieces that I mentioned after this season. So this was the year to cash in all your chips and go for the playoffs. Hasn't worked out that way.
Well, to answer your question that you asked me, no. There's going to be no difference in DJ this weekend. Yeah. He's just not ready to quarterback right now for whatever reason. Either he's hurt, either he's too rusty. They had a week off. You think Billy made some massive adjustments to his offense, Neil? You think Billy took advantage of the week off to, make some big-time adjustments to that offense instead of just running his 12 personnel with a whole bunch of little button hooks and stuff like that? No, he didn't do anything. In fact, the week off is a detriment to Florida because Texas had a week off also, no? Didn't it have a week off too?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah. So you know what Texas did? They've just been studying all of the last 4 years of Billy's offense here, where every play has been the same. Okay, he makes no adjustments, nothing. Self-scout. I mean, I've heard Billy say that he self-scouts. That's a lie. You know, he does not self-scout. And if he does, he doesn't care what he sees. Okay? Because the defensive coordinators are down to what he's doing. And this Texas defense coordinator is going to come in here very confident that he could stop this offense. And he's probably right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back, like, wistfully remembering. You remember the days of Urban Meyer? Of course you do. But specifically, do you remember how there would always be, during every single bye week and at the start of every new season, there would always be something new to the offense? First, there would be the Bubba Caldwell reverse. Then there'd be the triple option. Then there'd be the jump pass. So on. There was always some new element that Urban Meyer and Dan Mullen would work in almost every single or after every single bye week. There was just always some new innovation that made defenses kind of double take and just not be prepared for, that Florida would wind up winning the game because of, at least in some small part. There hasn't been anything that I've seen Billy Napier do to adjust this offense since the day he got here. So no, the answer is no. DJ Lagway is not going to magically look different. Maybe his footwork will be a little better if there was some kind of foot injury that we haven't been told about. Maybe the offensive line blocking a little bit better will give him a little more confidence as the game goes along to do the things he's supposed to do, go through his reads, which, by the way, I said reads, not read, because there's more than one read that he's allowed to go through. Maybe he can climb the pocket and deliver some darts like he did last year. The throw to Elijah Badger against LSU that was caught down to the 1 yard line against the Tigers, that comes to mind. Maybe he'll do some of those kinds of things here and there, but the offense is what the offense is. There's no real imagination or creativity to the routes. We've talked about that before. Very rarely are there any routes even run beyond the first down line. When there are, they're blanketed because there's only one of them, and there's a double high safety there that doesn't know what to do. He can't believe he doesn't have anything to occupy himself with. So he goes, yeah, sure. I'll go and join my 2 teammates here and create triple coverage here on this deep post route. Sure, why not? So there's nothing about the offense that gives Lagway the ability to be any more successful than he has been, because it's the same boring 2 or 3 concept offense with the same flood and mesh concepts to the one side of the field that are almost always run out of 12 personnel that we've seen since the day he got here. So I'm frankly tired of coming up with ways to describe it, because it's just a boring offense that doesn't give fans anything to be excited about, and it has not evolved or adapted in the slightest since he got here. That's my biggest pet peeve with it. There's been nothing changing about it since teams have admitted publicly that they know what plays are coming. We showed that graphic a few shows ago. That's insane. So we'll put a wrap on this show soon. We'll get to our scores in a second. Got to shout out our model first before we do that. Dustin, fire up your graphics for that. You want access to the model? Go to patreon.com/CFP Forecaster. We share some numbers here on the podcast, but Patreon members get exclusive access to all that data every game and every week. So there are a couple different tiers that you guys can choose from. The higher you go, the more access you get to it, including advanced stats, full season picks, and even credits to run your own game simulations once that feature does launch. Hasn't quite yet, but almost. So by joining, not only are you investing in the future of this model, but you're giving yourself a major advantage with the numbers you need to make smarter picks. Patreon.com/CFP Forecaster. Again, this Patreon is something that Dustin has been hard at work on for a while, but it's not just a donation to Dustin. It's a mutually beneficial thing. You can win money off of this. Last week, our model 54.7 against the spread. Again, you go 55% or above, you're good enough to make money in Vegas as a professional gambler. This right on the doorstep of it for the year. I believe it's above 60% against the spread, which is way over that threshold. 67.9% correct straight up last week. So this week we made a change to the model. There is no longer anything that has been taken into account from preseason or past season, or last season, I should say. So everything about this model we have right now is from the current season's advanced stats. So no longer leaning on preseason numbers, and the projections should now be a lot sharper, more reflective of what's actually happening on the field. So, Dustin, let's get the top 25. We'll go through that real quick, and then we'll get to our verdict. So you got Oregon at the top. They take over the top spot from Ohio State, who slips down to number 2. Alabama holding steady at number 3. Got a bit of a Midwestern feel next three slots with Texas Tech, Indiana, and Missouri. Ironically, all 3 of those schools from different conferences. Miami, the Hurricanes, staying at number 7. Penn State and Vandy and USC rounding out the top 10. Ole Miss and Oklahoma and Georgia and Texas A&M. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 SEC teams in a row right there. FSU sitting at 17. That's lower than I would have thought they would be. I guess Virginia really took a bite out of them, but I didn't think they dropped that low in the model. But they're number 17. Notre Dame is 18. LSU back to the SEC, another SEC team in the top 25 here at number 19, and a couple of Big Ten teams, Michigan and Nebraska, Utah and BYU, the Holy War teams sitting there at 22 and 23, Mississippi State at 24, and number 25 is Washington. Florida sitting just outside the top 25. Somehow the model, I guess, respects the defense for Florida, keeping them in the top 30. So I don't know, maybe if Florida pulls off a win against Texas, we'll see them in the top 25 here. Not that gives us a whole lot to be thankful for this season, but it's something. So, all right, that is the model for the week.
Actually, Neil, Florida State hadn't been ranked in the model yet, so they actually got up to 17 for the first time ranked in our power rankings, even after losing to Virginia. So correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, because the model just started taking – that's right, because now the model is only using stuff from this season. Yeah. It wasn't doing that before.
Exactly. So hey.
So beating Alabama holds a lot of weight there.
Yeah, a lot of people from Tallahassee were kind of upset that the Seminoles weren't ranked in our model yet. But look at that. Now they are ranked even after losing to Virginia. But I think, Neil, it's going to be short-lived because I got Miami rolling them on Saturday, man.
Miami is, the model has Miami beating FSU too. Model says 35-27. Model also has Alabama getting some payback over Vandy. The model says 34-19. The model also says that Texas will beat Florida 24-19. That is frightening how close the model is to my picks. I've already got mine written down, so I'll show mine in a second. But, all right, verdict. Let's talk about it. Keys to the game. What have you got?
All right, I got obviously our 3 keys to the game. Number 1, listen, Neil, man, with this offense, and we talked about it a little bit, you're going to need turnovers. You got to produce turnovers. I say minimum 3 to 4 turnovers they're going to need to even have a chance. And probably one of them being a pick 6. They got to score on defense. I'm not saying special teams, so I'll just say defense right now. You need to put up a score on defense to have a chance. Get 3 more turnovers. Arch is going to be your best bet to give them to you, right? I don't think they fumble much. So that's number 1. You got to produce turnovers. Number 2, real simple. You got to establish the run, obviously. It's going to be easier said than done. That's the best way to get your quarterback who's struggling to have some type of success. Neil, we haven't ran the ball this year with the same success that we did last year. Different reasons for that. Maybe the offensive line just hasn't played up to par. The right side of our offensive line has been a disaster. Let's just be honest, call it what it is. But, it's a bad week, Neil, because Texas has the number 3 run defense in the nation. They give up only 61.2 yards per game. So it's a bad week to try and establish the run on somebody. But that's my number 2 key. And number 3, Neil, you got to keep the swamp on your side, man. I spend a lot of time on campus every morning. I've seen some frat guys out there. They got some stuff planned for the game if things go bad. I think if there's a first 3 and out right off the bat, you're going to start hearing boos. I'm telling you right now. You might start hearing Fire Billy chants if things go south here soon in that game. So you got to keep the swamp on your side. Good way to do that is to get defensive turnovers, right? You get turnovers on defense, always gets the crowd fired up. So 1 plays off of number 3, 3 plays off of number 1 there for my keys to the game. But we'll see, man. It'll be easier said than done to keep that swamp on the Gators side, unfortunately, this weekend. And, Neil, one more thing, man. Normally, you see the tents out in Tent Village there in the front of the stadium. Normally, you'll see, half filled, big games, a little bit more. They're all filled for this game. And they got tents in the plaza. They got tents out by the student union. And they even set up some tents out by the law school. That's telling me that there's going to be a ton of Texas fans here, man, because they got money. All right, these guys got money, and they're setting up tents all over the place. So the
And Florida
tailgates for
fans are unloading their tickets. Yep.
I've never seen these many tents being set up before a Gator game since they've been doing that. So that's telling me that there's going to be Texas fans all over the place, man. So that ought to be something to watch here on Saturday. Hook them. They'll be doing this all day.
Yeah. I can't.
What do you got, Neil?
Yeah, well, I mean, the key to the game, the keys to the game for me are pretty much the same as yours. I'll make them a little bit different. I'll say the one different key I actually have from you is special teams. I think this actually is going to be a close game for a while, and this is where we got to get good Trey Smack. We saw him miss a few field goals against Long Island at the start of the year. He's actually been pretty good since then. I'm not sure he's missed since then. He might have missed one since then, if that. Get your field goal team onto the field without triggering substitution penalties this time. Let's make sure we don't lose the game by snapping the ball over a punter's head again. And let's make sure we do all the fundamental things right this time. I think if Florida special teams can do what it's supposed to do throughout the course of the game with no mistakes, Florida has a better than 50% chance to win, but I don't think that's going to happen. So number two, I'm going to say you have to create turnovers, like Adrian said. You've got to take the ball away. You've got to get the crowd in it. And I'm sure that if Florida does take the ball away, the crowd will be booing seconds later once Billy runs the same 3 bubble screens in a row and Florida punts again. But you have to do something to give your defense a rest. Your defense can earn that right by creating turnovers, getting the ball back for their offense, but you have to make sure that you don't keep putting them out there to get wilted on 60, 70, 80-plus yard drives where Texas just death marches down the field on you and breaks your will. So defense forcing turnovers is obviously a big one. And then DJ Lagway, man, he's got to play better. And I am the first to say that a large reason why he's not playing well is because of the handcuffs that Billy Napier's offense places on him. But he also has not helped situations.
So we're doing our predictions?
We're going to do our predictions. We're going to show them in 1 second.
Neil, before we get to that, man, this was, if you remember to our preseason episode we did with Allie, with Chris Philly from SEC Unfiltered, we talked about this game, man, that this game could be just so huge that the Swamp could be just maniac version of the Swamp. I told Chris Philly, man, that the Miami game was the most important game because I thought we would lose to LSU. If we win against Miami, the atmosphere in this game would be just amazing. Chris is still going to make it down here. SEC Unfiltered will be down here. You'll probably be meeting up with Chris out there. And but, man, it's just not going to be that, dude. It's just not going to be that, unfortunately. It's not going to have that atmosphere that we had all hoped for. And that's unfortunate, man. But when I think about this game, this is an awful matchup for Florida, Neil. This is not a good matchup, man. We talked about Texas's defense. They're number 4 in the nation overall. I talked about their run defense being number 3. They're number 2 scoring. They're like literally top 10 in just about everything else. And Florida, when it comes to the offense, is about in the hundreds in just about everything.
Oh, it is. That's a good point. Let's bring that up before we get to our final predictions. Let's talk about that real quick. All right. Florida ranks guess where, Adrian, in terms of points per game?
120.
120th? Points per game is actually 98th in the country. But that's
At
only
11.
because of Long Island. Because they put 55 on Long Island.
And if you take away Long Island, I believe they're at like 11.7 points per game in the last 3 games.
Yeah. So that's fantastic. Total offense, yards per game. Want to guess where they are?
105.
Worse. 113th in the country. Yards per play, guess where they are?
115.
Worse. 118th. And in
Close.
third down conversion rate, guess where they are?
125.
Slightly better. 122nd.
Oh,
so 98th, 113th, 118th, 122nd in the country in the four biggest categories there are on offense. Billy Napier, for as dumb as he may be, is absolutely correct on one thing, that him calling the plays for the last 8 years has gotten him exactly where he is right now. So let's pull out our scores, Adrian. Let's show the world what we've got.
I almost did it, Neil. I almost called it. I almost called for the streak to end. Almost.
Okay.
24-3.
Well, we both have 24 for Texas.
I was this close to calling a shutout for Florida. This close.
See, I think this is going to be a close game. I don't think Texas is a whole lot better than Florida is either. I'll show it one more time. So I say, for those listening on audio, I said 24-20 for Texas. 60-40 proposition, straight 60-40, no percent, no weird integers, no percentiles or anything. It's just straight 60% chance for Texas. Adrian says 24-3 for Texas, 90% chance Texas wins the game. As we said, the model said 24-19, so I am almost dead even with what the model says. And that means all three of us now, the model, myself, and Adrian, all have Texas scoring 24 points. The model and I also agree exactly that Florida will have a 40% chance to win the game. So interesting there. I think that's going to be a close game. I really do. I think the Florida defense is going to play hard. I have this fear that there's going to come that break moment where they're just out of energy with which to give. It's not that they give up. They just don't have anything more to give. So I feel in that situation things could get ugly.
I think it's important to say that we don't look at our scores and we didn't know what the model said. And we all got 24 points for Texas. That's pretty wild, man. That's pretty wild. And this is the first time I think that you and me kind of really we disagree on a score.
Yeah,
we've all been right there.
We disagree on Florida's point, though. We agree exactly on Texas's point. Yeah, right. No, I mean, we never show each other our scores. We never talk about them. And people ask, Dustin has produced a lot of graphics for us. Dustin does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Why does Dustin never just do a graphic and reveal a graphic to show our scores? It's because we don't want to show each other our predictions before we show them to the world. So, again, I think Florida fights hard. I think the stuff about rooting against Florida is kind of dumb because what's going to happen is going to happen. I'm actually with Chris from a year ago on this one. If Napier is going to get fired, he's going to get fired on his own accord. It's going to be his own fault. If he doesn't, the swamp will be a ghost town next year and the end of this year. Like, it'll be all FSU fans doing the tomahawk chop, and you'll hear, oh, and you'll hear Rocky Top, you'll always be home. Like, it will sound like other teams' home games at the end of this season and next season, and however long Napier is here. And the UAA is going to have a lot of hard questions to answer financially if they keep Billy Napier around. So what's going to happen is going to happen. I would personally rather the Texas fans who are coming to this game, and we know they're going to be loud for their team, I'd rather them not have anything to cheer about because that's going to make the atmosphere even more miserable for us Gator fans who are going to be there. But until next time, y'all, hopefully we have an upset win to talk about. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that a team that is known for losing games, having lost more games than they've won under Billy Napier, will find another way to do so this week. But I do think it'll be a competitive game. Hopefully I'm wrong. We talk about a win. But in any case, Neil Shulman from the All Kinds of Weather Forecast, Adrian Perez saying good night, good morning, wherever time of day you're listening to this. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating and a nice review on Apple Podcasts. Like, subscribe, and comment on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching. And again, we hope that we have something surprisingly pleasant to talk about the next time we come on. Go Gators. Let's upset Texas.